Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and we're about to go all in on week one of the college softball season. It was upset central, rankings got exposed, mid-majors made statements, and if you blinked, your top 10 team probably lost. And oh, by the way, I've got a very special guest for you on the back end of the show. So with that being said, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. As I mentioned, so listen, man, we're jumping right into these upsets of last week because it was electric, in my opinion. We had some noteworthy, powerhouses that took on each other. Tennessee took down Oregon. More on Oregon later. Really kind of questioning where they sit right now. But let's talk about the upsets because I will say that they came in groves this week. I think we had maybe 11, 12 upsets that I was not anticipating. And I don't want to put too much stock into any of them. However, because it's early, right? You've got teams that have brand new identities from last year. Maybe they lost some people, maybe they retooled, maybe they're in a rebuilding stage or what have you. But regardless, the rankings came in and we're going by the rankings. And so we're starting at the top. And I'm talking about the very top with the dynasty that is the Oklahoma Sooner legacy, Patty Gasso, the whole nine out there in Oklahoma, right? They took on Arizona. And listen, I talked about Arizona being able to handle their identity and take that on of what they need to be in the post Mike Kendria era. And they heard me, I guess. I don't know because they took down OU right away in game one. Now Oklahoma ended up winning the series. They won game two convincingly, put up over 20 runs or something crazy, right? So there was a lot to unfold and unpack in that series, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but I will say I personally believe that a lot of teams now are playing a lot more loose against OU. And OU, very, very elite program, obviously. They're still elite. I think, in my opinion, they are the standard. I don't believe that this win from last year, with Texas winning it all, I don't believe that's a one-off. I think OU, though, is going to continue to be in the conversation year in and year out. They're a top three program, no doubt. And, but they flexed after getting beat in that first matchup. And again, our game is crazy, right? Arizona, anybody's gettable, right? And I think the gap between 1 and 25 is a lot tighter than we thought, maybe, I would say. So kudos, man, to number 18 Arizona taking down number 3 Oklahoma. We had another upset that took place as well, man. I think this was the statement win of the weekend. Number 9 Nebraska taking down number 1 Texas, man. I said it at the onset of last week when we started this conversation. Is Nebraska the true blue collar team that is ready to take that next step this year, especially with Georgie Ball and the team that they've built around her, right? Or are they just a feel good story? Well, I don't think so. I don't think that they're a feel good story just, right? I think that they're more than that. And honestly, I think that they are a team that will threaten every program that they face that's ranked ahead of them. I don't know that you can take them lightly this year at all. I think they're better than they were last year, right? Because if you remember, they won the Baton Rouge Regional, right? If you're an LSU fan like me, you definitely remember that. But what I'm getting at though is they won it not being that respected in my assessment. Okay, and so because of that, they're one of those programs that took a step up, a major step up, and the rankings reflected it, and we'll talk about that as well. But I really think right now, man, Nebraska is a program that everybody has to take seriously. They're gonna circle them on the calendar just like you do with Florida State. You cannot underestimate where they are right now and the grit that they play with. And so that leads me to the question of who really is the best team in the country right now. Is it still Texas? I know Texas Tech has taken the reins as the number one program. I know Tennessee's right up there now as well. If I had to say, I believe that Texas is still right there as the number one program. I don't know that the rankings, um, maybe they're a little harsh to that loss, to Nebraska for Texas. But I could give you a totally different answer after this week because we've got some powerhouse matchups that I'll get into here a little bit later. Now, let's check in on the SEC and the ACC here real quick because these are two conferences that I told you they're both well rather the ACC is very top heavy in my opinion. We got Duke, we got Clemson there, right? Florida State's in there. And then on the other side, you have what I would say a very deep SEC conference. However, those two assessments are going to be challenged this year, I will say, because based on this week and what I foresee in weeks to come, the SEC depth is going to be challenged, and the question is it vulnerable, right? Is it volatile? Okay, and it's because you had Belmont, man, Belmont right here out of Nashville, Tennessee, a mid-major, taking down number 15 Georgia, right? You had Virginia taking down number 8 Arkansas, right? Which was crazy. That was a great, an electric game right there, man. Kind of a nail biter, if you will. But you have Boise State, right? Representing the Mountain West, taking down number 22 Ole Miss. And this is a team in Ole Miss that I said from last year's Women's College World Series last week, like, yo, they could be right back in the conversation. They've got to retool and reload, but they've got some guns coming back. So Boise State taking them down was a very big deal. And then you got Virginia Tech taking down number 14 South Carolina. So again, is the SEC vulnerable this year? And again, you got the ACC, man, quietly stacking really quality victories. And that's going to play a role down the stretch, man, when you look at the rankings and how things unfold, right? And we're in an era right now where we're already talking about tournament time because where our team's going to jockey and kind of stack themselves up against the rest of the teams in their conference and then some of those powerhouses that they may face on the other side of things. So here's the thing. What I'll say before we take this break, because I need to slow down. I'm jazzed up right here. But before we take this break, I do not believe that these mid-major programs are just here for fun. They're not happy to just be here. They're here for real. And I guarantee you better keep your eye on Belmont. We talked about Liberty, and Liberty took some blows this week for sure, right? But they challenged themselves, and they may fall out of the rankings potentially. I don't know, but Liberty's going to be there. I believe that. But you got teams like Belmont lurking in the weeds, and they're coming. And I would not be shocked if teams like that, man, did not say, hey, listen, we're going to take on somebody's regional and we're going to take them down. The same goes for Southeastern Louisiana, taking on Oregon, man, beating number 5 Oregon, right? I mean, these teams are here and they are real. They're for real. So kudos to the mid majors, man. Big shout out to them because what they're putting together right now is not going unnoticed. And if you're turning a blind eye to it, then they're going to wake you up in the worst way possible, especially if your team is a top 10 program. So we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. And as I mentioned before, I talked about that SEC conference there being volatile, right? And so speaking of that volatility, I think about Clemson and Oregon right now. That was a very much a roller coaster for both of those programs this weekend, and I don't want to, raise any red flags for them. I think this is very much early season inconsistencies for them. Because if you look at elite teams right now, number 12 Clemson, number 5 Oregon, elite teams, they don't necessarily avoid losses, but they do avoid patterns. And so I want to give them the next couple of weeks to see, how they respond to this first weekend because that's what elite teams do. They make adjustments when they get punched in the mouth and then they go from there, right? It's always about adjusting, especially depending on the opponent, right? Styles make fights and you never know, especially here early season, you never know really what teams are bringing in, especially with the overhaul, of NIL and the transfer portal. But more so rather, the freshmen, right? You really don't know what the freshmen are bringing to the table. And really, man, you've got a lot of first year players coming out here making big statements. They are unplanned for. I would rather say the transfer portal players, they're easier to plan for because you've got, college data on them, right? But sometimes those freshmen come in and you don't really know what to expect out of those guys. So again, we'll see kind of how that unfolds, man. But here's the thing: the fact remains, Michigan State beat number 12 Clemson. You can't avoid that, right? Auburn beat number 12 Clemson. Okay, now again, Auburn is one of those SEC programs that are unranked right now. However, if they continue to stack some wins, they're going to be right in the mix. I love their program. I love where they're going right now. Also, I've got a little bit of bias to Auburn because that's my wife's favorite team to root for. So kind of rooting for Auburn to get back on the map. But then you've got Clemson, who turned around and beat number 5 Oregon, and then Big Bad Southeastern Louisiana beating number 5 Oregon as well. And I'm calling them Big Bad because I've got respect for Southeast Louisiana and what they're doing down there, man. I, as I regret to say, as always, they beat down my LSU Tigers in the Baton Rouge Regional last year, and it seems to me that they're right back where they were. Okay, they were a couple of wins, obviously shy. Nebraska took them down in that regional to win it, but as I said before, Liberty, Belmont, Southeastern Louisiana, these mid majors are here for real. They are not here to play games with y'all, so y'all better be ready. If you're a powerhouse, these are trap games. I would call them trap games because you are very much about to get trapped. So anyway, I'll say that about these elite teams. But again, don't overreact. If you're a number 12 Clemson fan, number 5 Oregon, don't overreact just yet. I think that they'll retool and refocus as they prepare for the weeks to come. But on the other side of things though, I thought you had a couple of teams here in this first weekend who kind of had some resume builders, if you will, because they're not ranked right now, but they're also on that fringe of gaining the respect that they need. And I got to start with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a program, man, that is they've been wishy-washy over the years, obviously. But if you've noticed over the last 3 years, they have consistently built more and more around their pitching staff, and they've gained more and more power. And so they took down Liberty. Again, number 23 Liberty. Now, just as I say, these mid majors are here to play ball. They're also going to get got right at times as well as they enter the rankings. They're going to take people's best shots, and I think that's what happened with Liberty this week. They took a couple of blows, like I mentioned earlier. Notre Dame got them. Mizzou routed them. Right. Mizzou's another team, and in the SEC that they don't get a lot of respect yet, but I think if they are able to win a couple of in conference series, then you never know what'll happen on that front. Boston University, man, took down number 19 Duke. I've already told you guys about my suspicions regarding Duke, and they still are there. Honestly, I don't know what they're going to be. I think they're a very flashy team early. They've been that the last couple of years, and they kind of flame out on the back end. But Boston was like, hey, let's just go ahead and nip this in the bud now and take them down, right away. So, but again, I don't think Duke is a team that is a fraud. I just believe that they are going to have to put it together when it matters most. But this early blemish, does not look good for their resume, I would say. Number 25, Washington, taking down Nebraska. Nebraska coming off of a very, critical victory, right? Taking down number 1. They've also got Texas Tech coming up this week, another number 1 matchup for Nebraska. But for Washington's sake, I think that they're underranked. I think that they are better than 25. Obviously, this next week or two is gonna, help that shape more. But if you look at the way that Washington is built, they are a they have enough to beat every team in their conference. No doubt. We're not, I'm not going to debate that with you. The question is, do they have enough flexibility to beat some of these other out of conference programs? And they just proved it here against Nebraska, kind of winning a gritty, grindy type game. Can they do that with the bats of, say, Texas or Arizona or Oklahoma, right? We'll see. All right, we'll see. And but they can get in those pitcher duels for sure. So we'll see what that looks like. The depth in February is it's February, so like I said, we can't put too much stock into it. But the season has started, so whatever's happening, it's happening, and we got to be ready for it. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna take another quick break here. When I come back, we're going to talk about this coming week and all that's unfolding. As last week was upset central, this week powerhouses are taking on each other again, and you're not going to want to miss it. So I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the show once again. We're gonna breeze through these powerhouse matchups here, man. As I stated before, it's all about the powerhouses this week, right? Last weekend was chaos with all the upsets. This weekend it's about clarity, right? Establishing your grounds, who's who of who, right? And especially with these new rankings right now, things have kind of already begun to shuffle as far as the deck is concerned. So these new rankings are out and these powerhouses are going after each other. So we're going to start with number 5, Florida State, taking on the new number 1 in Texas Tech. Okay, this right here is a measuring stick game, honestly, right? You've got Florida State, they're fast. They're fast, they got speed. They've also got the power, and they are very, very disciplined. They do not take at bats off whatsoever. They're very going to be very hard to strike out. And obviously, they're going to see Nigel Kennedy, and they're going to see her firepower. So we're going to see, are they really the number 1 team in the nation? Because if they can take down Florida State, a team that everybody has to circle on their calendar, then you're going to say, all right, yeah, we'll take that for what it is, right? We're not going to take that Texas Tech ranking for granted on that regard. The second one, man, UCLA, number 6 UCLA versus number 2 Tennessee. I think this is going to be a fun game. Honestly, I feel like this is a Women's College World Series preview type game, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, but I think this is a battle of styles, man. I think Tennessee, they play with a lot of pressure, right? And traditionally UCLA, they're very composed. So you've got a team that is trying to apply pressure, and you've got a team that relatively stays composed when challenged. Which one of those are going to win out? So I'm excited about this one. I hope you guys are too, because UCLA and Tennessee, the last 5 to 10 years, man, they are both been very good with pitching. And so if honestly, let's be honest, UCLA even beyond that, as well as Tennessee, honestly. But if you look at the deck that they've put together as far as depth of their bullpens as well, both of them, they've got number 1s in their bullpen. And so that's why I say, man, UCLA and Tennessee, this could be a preview for June, late May type action. So the third one, all right, back to number 1 Texas Tech. They're taking on number 13 Nebraska. Now Nebraska beat down number 1 Texas at the time last week, but they took that loss to number 25 Washington, which ultimately dropped them in the rankings a bit. But that doesn't mean anything to them right now. Okay, they're being disrespected. All right, and this is very much a trap game for Texas Tech. This gives trap game energy because if Texas Tech lets their guard down, again, I'm going to keep calling them the blue collar team in Nebraska. Nebraska will hunt you down and they will take what's theirs. And right now, Nebraska's not intimidated by anybody. They're also a very physical team. They're physical, they're gritty, and they're not intimidated. That's a recipe for disaster for any team who lets their guard down. So Texas Tech better play like the number 1 team that they say they are and that they know they are on honestly. And if they don't, they're going to get got. So there you go with them. The next one here is back to Tennessee and Florida State. Okay, number two Tennessee, number five Florida State. Okay, back to back heavyweight matchups for both of these programs. Right. Honestly, I think that whoever can win this game would currently take the rank of the most complete team. All right, from top to bottom, offensively, defensively, in the bullpen, depth coming off the bench, pinch hitting wise, they're going to be the most complete team coming out of this weekend because you can't be able to, how do I put this? If they're able to win their first games and then come back and win this one as well, you got the complete team badge from me. All right. The fifth one here before break, real quick, is number 10 LSU. All right, number 10 LSU taking on number 6 UCLA. This is a sneaky good game. LSU bias aside, right here, this Tiger team right here plays with a lot of intensity. I think you're going to see it right away. And as I mentioned, UCLA is composed, and to me, they don't panic at all. Okay. However, if LSU is able to get an early lead, early momentum, then things can kind of snowball. That's how this LSU program plays. This is the identity that they've built over the last few years, especially with Beth Torina at the helm. And so we're going to find out what LSU has because this is really their first big challenge of the season. We'll see if UCLA panics at all if they are tested early on in this ball game. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 more of these on the other side of this break. And on the other side of that break, I've got a very special guest that I will tease again with you guys once we get back. See you in a second. All right, guys, welcome back one more time. And again, like I said, we are going to jump into 5 more games that I think are noteworthy for this week. And that begins with number 14, Oregon, right, versus number 12, Stanford. Now let's talk about that ranking, man, for Oregon. They were shaky this past week and they dropped 9 spots in the rankings after one weekend. And that's how quick, man, the ball can fall for you if you lose a bunch of games, and that's where Oregon finds themselves. They were a top 5 team this time last week. All of a sudden, they're number 14. But that doesn't matter to them right now. They've got to win what's in front of them. Stanford is really good at home, and I think that that's going to play dividends right here for sure. I think the pitching matchups will decide everything about this game here. So let's keep an eye on that. This is redemption time for Oregon, no doubt. The next one, number 25, Oklahoma State versus number 11, Texas A&M. Okay, I told you guys before, Oklahoma State is a team that you don't want to see in the tournament. You don't want to see them on the schedule because they're always gritty, they're always physical. However, on the other side, Texas A&M is trying to prove right now that they belong in the SEC as an elite team. That's critical, right? They belong in the SEC. We know that. But are they an elite SEC program? Because again, they surprised the heck out of me last year, going down as the overall number 1 program. All right. So they've got to show that they are who they say they are down the stretch. I think this could be an emotional matchup. Okay. Speaking of emotional matchups, number 19 versus number 22 Duke. Okay. Both of these teams need something. They're missing something. Right now, I think that Georgia's missing stability. They gotta have that right now. And then on the other side, Duke is trying to prove that they are nationally, like, they're legit, right? But they gotta earn that. And so, to me, this is a resume building game for both of these programs. And honestly, if I look at it with a fine tooth comb, the loser of this game takes a perception hit because if you look at the way that both of the programs are playing right now, they are they're each showing that, hey, we are good, but we're not great. And when you're not great, then being in the SEC, being not great is not going to cut it. Being in the ACC as a team that's already top heavy is also not going to cut it. So where will both of these teams fall after this week? I've got Georgia, really, as I was about to say, I got my money. I don't have any money on anything, but I've got Georgia squeaking this one out against Duke. This is a rematch, really, of last year's super regional matchup there. So anyway, we're gonna see how this unfolds. Okay, now excuse me, not super regional, but the regional matchup. All right, so the next one here, number 17 Clemson. Again, they took a hit in the rankings. Number 9 Arkansas. They only dropped one spot here. This is one where again I think Clemson has got to show that they belong as well. Clemson has an incredibly high ceiling. I just think their floor is very questionable right now. I don't know how far they can fall because I think they could really dip out of the ranking and be irrelevant. But they could also say, "Hey, we're top 5." I don't know right now. So they're really, like they're like an accordion right now. I don't know where they're gonna sit. Okay. Then you've got Arkansas right now, where they're trying to prove that they're still elite. I think they're on that Texas A&M spectrum right now, where they're wanting to kind of get their positioning for SEC play, and really feel good about what they're doing, because the Razorbacks, to me, kind of like Stanford, they're really good at home, but when they travel, sometimes they can just be a little, I don't know. So fortunately for them, they've got a team in Clemson right now that's also trying to find its identity. So they should win this battle, but again, all bets are off. I've got one more for you here. All of these have been ranked games. However, this one is not. Number 16 Virginia Tech versus unranked Michigan State. The reason I thought that this one is interesting is because Michigan State is showing that they're a little bit dangerous right now. And so I think that it's worth adding them into this conversation, because they could find themselves ranked if they take down this Virginia Tech program, who was not ranked part of this week. So you've got two teams trying to stack good quality wins. They're both doing a great job of that. We'll see if that balance of Virginia Tech is able to withstand the grit of Michigan State. So anyway, guys, those are my 10 matchups for you to look out for this week. I hope that you will be dialed in with me on these. But before this break, I want to let you guys know, man, I've got a really special guest. Take 20, 25 minutes, the rest of the show, to listen to the story of my special guest, man. Her name is Rose Crelli, and listen, she was one of the violinists at the Super Bowl this past weekend. And if you really kind of look at, or rather listen to the portion of the story that she shared, it's only a fraction, honestly. But she came from a Chinese orphanage. Her adopted family moved to Alaska. That's where she grew up. That's where she went to school. And then she ended up going to college up in Kentucky, found herself out in the Bay Area in San Francisco, California, and that's where she resides now as a very, very talented violinist. I mean, she's doing games for the San Francisco Giants every year, doing the national anthem for them. And like I said, she just found herself with Benito Bad Bunny on the Super Bowl stage at halftime. So she has a very inspiring story. I wanted to bring her on the show to be able to inspire our audience, man, to just do more, be more, and to also know that, listen, it doesn't always matter where you start. It's really about the journey, about where you're going, and if you've got some stick to itness, and if you've got some really quality people around you, then you never know what's possible. So anyway, guys, on the other side of this break, we're gonna jump into that and see where it flows from there. Be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. As I promised you before the break, I am coming in here with a very special guest. She goes by the name of Rose Crelli. She's from out in the Bay Area, and she was one of the most incredible violinists, one of the many, rather, incredible violinists that just performed at the halftime show at Super Bowl 60. So, Rose, thank you, and we're really excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, no problem. So tell me, all right, are you still on cloud nine right now? Have you come back down to earth? What's it been like post Super Bowl at this point?
Post Super Bowl, I was very overwhelmed by the amount of media interview requests that I have gotten. Yesterday, I think I had 8 to 9 different interviews ranging from in the Bay Area to Canada to the UK.
Wow.
So it's been very unexpected, but a pleasant surprise.
Love that for you. That's so are you running on fumes right now? Are you getting sleep at all?
Definitely running on fumes. I performed for a 9 a.m. wedding at City Hall this morning, so I've just like jumped straight back into work.
Wow. Wow, love that. Okay, so we'll jump into the Super Bowl stuff real quick in just a second here. But before the Super Bowl lights came on, all right, tell us who was I know you go by Frozen Fiddle Rose on Instagram. Who was she before the Super Bowl?
Before the Super Bowl, to be honest, I was actually going through a little bit of a rougher period where I wasn't quite feeling my full like mental and emotional self. I was actually feeling a little bit low.
Mm,
And I was really confused as to why, because I was like, I know I'm playing the Super Bowl. I should be so excited. I should be feeling at my best. Like the biggest like career performance of my life is coming up. But I was actually struggling with a little bit of low self-esteem and like comparison to others, and it was a very odd moment for me because I
mm.
knew that I was having a really exciting thing happening, but at the same time I wasn't quite feeling as like good as I expected myself to. But then the Super Bowl happened and everything just blew up, so it just goes to show like right before your biggest moment you might be feeling a little low, and that's okay.
Well, listen, I was just going to ask you maybe what you've learned from this experience leading up to the Super Bowl of kind of having those lows, right? But I mean, you're right. I mean, you can be in those valleys in the trenches and kind of on that uphill climb, and then you're on top of the mountain, right? So there's a lot to say to that for you from a mentality standpoint to even maybe break out of that. But I guess let's go way back to I mean you're young girl growing up in Alaska, right? So tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you grew up, what the music was like in your hometown. Like, give us a little bit of that.
Okay, yes, of course. So I was originally born in China. I was abandoned as a baby, spent the first 8 months of my life at an orphanage before I was adopted to my family in Alaska. Growing up in Alaska, it was very rural, off the grid, in the wilderness type of childhood, living in cabins. We had a dog team of huskies, went dog mushing all the time. I started violin because my aunt and my older brother play violin. So I grew up hearing it as a kid. I was a very competitive little sister, so I wanted to be doing exactly what my big brother was
Of course.
doing. And the music during the beginning of my childhood was a really fun mix of classical, but also folk and fiddle music, which is really what kept me going during those time periods when, as like in your early, like mid-teens, pre-teens, I wanted to quit a little bit. I was getting bullied and made fun of for playing violin because it wasn't very common in the rural northern town. And I felt like it put a target on my back for bullies. So there was a period when I really wanted to quit. But I loved playing fiddle music. And so that was the fun aspect of the music that kept me going during that time period when I otherwise would have quit. Um, and I'm just so grateful that I kept going because music has completely changed my life.
So first of all, I love your story, but then I think about like all the other kids out there right there in your shoes that maybe are having currently like right now having similar experiences and are trying to draw on something. I guess maybe if you look back at your experience over the years. I guess first of all, when did you start performing?
I started playing violin when I was 5. I think I was too young and I was really frustrated. So my mom made me quit and pick it back up a year later when I was 6. And I guess that was the right age for me. And then I started performing about probably like a year in,
Okay.
um, because with the Suzuki curriculum method for violin, it does emphasize getting used to performing and participating in recitals, whether as a group recital or a solo recital at a young age. So
Okay.
I was performing pretty much like a year into starting violin.
So, starting your performances at such a young age, right there, like I said, there's a lot of kids out there, I'm sure, that maybe whether it's the violin, another string instrument, or just performances in general, who maybe had or are having some similar experiences. Looking back over the years now, what's one thing, maybe a piece of advice that you would share with them to maybe kind of work through some of those struggles where maybe the outside world around them aren't as accepting of what they're doing.
Yeah, I would say keeping music fun. That's why we all start, is because we're drawn to it. We're drawn to the instrument, and I think remembering that music is supposed to be fun and keeping that at the core is the most important thing. Whether that's, for me, I love playing fiddle music, I love playing folk music, I love playing different genres of music, and so that's what kept me going when I felt like classical music was being a little bit boring for me or something. I love playing in orchestras, and just playing with my friends. So not only is it playing music, but it's also the community of getting to play music and perform with your friends, and the social aspect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how long did you spend in Alaska before finding yourself in the Bay Area?
So it's a bit of a convoluted timeline because I spent the first 6 years of my life in Alaska. Then my family decided to immigrate to northern Canada when I was 6. So then we spent 5 to 6 years in northern Canada, but there weren't really any violin teachers at my level in the Yukon territories. So then we moved back to Alaska for high school, and then I stayed in Alaska from high school all the way through my undergraduate, where I went to the University of Alaska Fairbanks and studied violin performance and music education.
Wow. Sounds like you've said that before the last couple of days. That's so funny. I love that for you. Okay, cool. So, what exactly then took you to the Bay Area?
So before the Bay Area, I actually lived in Louisville, Kentucky for 2 years. I got a master's of violin performance at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And then August 2020, I packed up my car, drove all the way from Kentucky to San Francisco, and never looked back.
Wow. Okay. So, did we just spin the globe and choose a city, or was San Francisco the intended target?
It was the intended target. I got accepted into the San Francisco Conservatory of Music for a postgraduate 1 year degree, and moved here, fell in love with the city, and I can't imagine living anywhere else right now.
Wow. Well, it is a beautiful city. My family and I will be out there, actually in a couple of months at the beginning of May to visit the city. We've been there a couple of times, and we always enjoy San Francisco. So, lovely
Amazing. We should
city.
go
Yeah,
then. Let me know.
I will absolutely. So let's fast forward here to the Super Bowl, but maybe the moments before that, in terms of walking, maybe walk us through how the whole Super Bowl experience came about to begin with. Like, was that a text? Was that a phone call? Was that a DM? Like, how did this opportunity even come up for you?
Yes, it was an email in early December asking about my availability on Sunday, February 8th for a potential halftime show performance. Once I got that email, I had to submit my headshot, a few other personal details. I had to get approved by 3 different approval committees. And then I got the official confirmation end of December.
Wow. So you've known for a couple of months then. I mean, how hard was it to keep that secret?
It was so hard. It was so hard. But honestly, seeing people's reactions when they saw me on screen and they had no idea was so much fun, actually. I got tagged in so many Instagram videos, and my friends are like screaming and like, it's like they're so excited to see me. And those reaction videos honestly like make me so happy.
So I actually checked out the video of you playing some Bad Bunny at maybe a wedding or something like that right
Yeah.
before the Super Bowl. So obviously you were dropping some hits there for everybody. Like,
Trying to be
did what that?
trying to be subtle without breaking my NDA.
That's right. That's right. So did you kind of have a little bit of fun, maybe keeping that secret, but just teasing just a little bit, like here's what's coming.
Yeah, I feel like I was trying to be like, look out for me during the Super Bowl, but not being specific about where or when exactly.
Got you. Got you. So Let me ask you this then. As far as the performance itself, were there a was there were there multiple rehearsals? Was there one big rehearsal? Like what was that like as
Yes,
far
so
as prep?
we had about 2 weeks of rehearsal prior to the Super Bowl. Um, First couple rehearsals were in LA, and then the rest of the rehearsals were in Santa Clara.
Okay, I got you. Were they more intense than maybe you're used to? Was it laid back, somewhere in between? How was that?
I think it's the biggest production I've been a part of. So it wasn't so much the playing part that we were really rehearsing. It was the getting in and getting out of our positions on the field that we really had to rehearse and drill.
Gotcha. So were you when you were rehearsing in Santa Clara, were you guys actually at Levi Stadium for rehearsals or somewhere off site?
Some were outside, and then I believe the last 3 days of rehearsals were actually at the venue.
Okay, gotcha. Very nice. And so are you already like a football fan? Was this more just a, let me come in and play and get out of there? Like what was the day of like for you? Obviously prior to the, performance, I'm sure you're preparing, but after, did you stick around for the Super Bowl? Or are you a football person or no?
Not really. I didn't. I wasn't watching the score. I heard the Seahawks won, and I was just happy because I'm definitely a West Coast girl.
Okay, love that. Very nice. Okay, good deal. So I guess maybe take us through a little bit of what's going through your mind while you're on stage in that moment. Obviously, you're playing your butt off, and you did a great job as well as the other violinists. But did you have just any of those intrusive thoughts creep in? Or what was that feeling like while you were there?
While I was there, I just wanted to soak in every second, every detail, and every moment so that later on I can replay it in my memory and not forget anything. I
Yeah,
know that sometimes when I'm performing, the adrenaline and the excitement kind of make my brain black out in a way. And then after I'm done, I'm like, whoa, what just happened? And I did not want that to happen for this moment. So I was just trying really hard to stay grounded, stay in the moment, and really just like soak in every detail.
sounds like mission accomplished. Then, have you gone back to watch the halftime show in its
Definitely,
entirety?
definitely. It gets me excited every time. I just start dancing when I see it. The music is
Love
so
that.
infectious. The
So,
energy, the excitement. I know like I've met pretty much the entire cast of musicians and dancers at this point, and I know how individually each one of them was so happy and so excited to be there, and you can just feel that through the screen.
mm, I love that. So it looked like a whole party, man, as the halftime show was wrapping up. So you guys are leaving the field and going back down through the tunnel and everything. What was that post show experience like? Were you kind of mingling, hanging around, and connecting with folks? What was the ending like for you guys as you were done?
The ending, we ended up having like a mini concert and dance party outside of the stadium with everybody.
What? No way.
I have a video of it somewhere. But yeah, we all just like after that parade out of the stadium, there was like we all gathered in a circle and we're just having like a little mini singing and dancing party with the percussionists, and it was just a big celebration.
That's dope. I love that for y'all, man. That's you can't beat that. Okay, so to kind of dig in a little further here, maybe just a little deeper dive as we begin to wrap up. So obviously that moment is bigger than music, right?
Mhm.
Kind of talk me through just being able to kind of have solid representation, man, at a Super Bowl performance like that, and just being a part of that moment, and you can probably say, yeah, I was just one single portion or whatever, but no, you're a big piece. You're a big piece of the whole big deal, right? So talk us through just your thoughts on that and just maybe the weight that carries with it.
Yeah, so I was constantly inspired looking around the room during rehearsals and seeing such a diverse cast of different ethnicities, different cultures, different stories, different heritages, different languages being spoken in the room. And it just felt like a really beautiful celebration of the diversity of America. And I just really appreciate how intentional they were in hiring the cast of dancers and musicians and extras, and just making sure that it was a very accurate representation of what modern day America looks like.
I love that, man. We're such a melting pot of a country anyway, right? And so, I actually, it warmed my heart to be able to see so much diversity on the field and obviously in the stands as well, and all around the country, man. But it goes to show that, musicians and athletes and just all, different arenas can come together and be one, even if it's just for 15 minutes, right? So, okay, cool. Well, listen, I don't want to hold you any much longer. I just want to ask though, right now, there's a lot going on. I know you play in weddings. You just played at City Hall today, right? You've got a lot of things going on. But what's next for Rose right now, the violinist?
Right now, what I'm really excited about is I have an upcoming public speaking and performance opportunity for the Lunar New Year. And they asked for me to speak about my experience as an Asian American and an adoptee from China, and my story as making my career as a violinist. And I'm really excited to share my story and hopefully inspire the younger generation of musicians, and also just provide representation for adoptees in the world. I've had several people reach out to me since I've shared my Super Bowl experience and say it meant so much to see an Asian American in the halftime show. It meant so much to see an adoptee in the halftime show. And I've had people reach out and say that their sons and daughters who are just starting out violin or a string instrument were so excited to see violins in the halftime show and see that that's a possibility. So I really just want that to keep going and to really just inspire the younger generation and provide representation.
Well, here's the reality, Rose. It's a beautiful thing because I think that you have set out to inspire the younger generation, but you're also inspiring a lot of other generations. I truly believe that. And I think at the end of the day, man, if we can all choose to love, right? I think it will really, using the pun, push the football down the field a lot further for us all. So, Lawrence, listen, thank you so much for being a part of this interview. As far as our audience is concerned, what ways can maybe we support you? What does that look like from for your standpoint?
I appreciate it when people, comment supportive words on my post, share my content, whether it's a video of my performances, or, when someone asks, hey, do you know a cool violinist? Just, mention my name.
There you go. Okay, good deal. Well, listen, once again, thank you for being on the show. Sounds like we'll be seeing you in a few months here when we get out to town. Anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. It was really nice talking with you.
Absolutely, no problem. Well, guys, listen, we're going to wrap this show up like we always do. So please let absolutely everything you do be done in love, because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes this beautiful world go around. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.